Is your strength actually your weakness? Believe it or not, for most players, it is. And in this video, I'm going to dig a little deeper into your game to figure out if this is the case for you and to help you to get more out of your strengths. Let's get into it. Now, some of my legendary followers have sent me videos of themselves playing matches. And so I'm going to be using some of this footage in this video to help to demonstrate some of my points. The video is going to be broken down into 3 steps. First, to help you to understand more about your strengths and your weaknesses. Then some tactical considerations that can help you to perform better on the match court. And finally, I'm going to do a bit of a technical analysis on some of these players to help them to get more out of their strengths. And so stay tuned till the end, as I'm sure you're going to pick up at least one nugget that's going to help your game. Step 1 is being aware of what's actually happening in your matches, which, although it sounds obvious, is actually very difficult to do, as most of the time the feedback we give ourselves from our matches purely comes from our own feelings in the match. But often what we feel doesn't correlate to what has actually happened, because naturally in matches we're focused on the point that's in front of us. The last thing we want to do is think about all the points that have happened previously. This is where collating some stats from your matches can be hugely beneficial. Don't worry, it doesn't have to be as professional as it sounds. There are 3 main ways that we as non-professional tennis players can do this. Number 1 is to have a friend sit courtside with a notepad and a pen, which is clearly not ideal. But if you've got a really good friend that's willing to do it, that's one way. Number 2 is to film your match using your phone or a camera and then watching the footage back and charting the match yourself, making a note of things like how many unforced errors you're hitting on your forehand and your backhand, how many winners you're hitting on each side, what the average rally length, and so on. I've actually made some videos on match charting before, which I'll put in the link in the description. But again, this is hugely time consuming. The third way, which is my favorite, is to use an app like Swing Vision, who I'm proud to say are the sponsors of today's video. As you already know from my previous videos, I'm a huge fan of Swing Vision. Swing Vision allows you to film training sessions and match play and does all of the match charting for you. At the end of your session, you have a breakdown of all of the match stats with the ability to break down the footage into bite-sized chunks. You can filter out specific shots or rally lengths, making it really easy for you to analyze your own game or for your coach to do it for you. What you'll also see when I get to the technical part of this video is, for me as a coach, when I'm looking at specific shots to break them down technically, I can slow the footage down by up to 10 times. And seeing a forehand in super slow motion gives me far more detail than I'd have in real time. And so if you're really serious about leveling up your game, you can download Swing Vision for free, or I've got a promo code if you want to subscribe to the Pro version. This gives you a free swing stick worth $100. I've already had amazing feedback from my followers that have downloaded the app from my last videos, and I'm sure you'll love it too. But regardless of how you collate the stats for your matches, some of the key numbers for you to look at are your unforced error versus your winner count. That's what we're going to focus on today, as all 3 players that I'm going to show you hit most winners using their forehand. And when you look at the footage, you can see that it's their forehand that they consider to be their weapon. However, like most people, all of these players hit most unforced errors also on their forehand. These 2 stats usually come hand in hand, as when you've got a shot in your game that's a bit of a weapon, you feel like you can hit it harder. It also comes with mistakes. But the problem comes when your unforced error count is much higher than your winner count. And so if you have the opportunity to collate the stats from your matches, check out those 2 figures. And if there is a shot where you're hitting far more errors than winners, that's a shot to look at. Step number 2, I'm going to give you 3 mental cues that you can take into your matches to help to reduce the unforced errors you hit with your weapon. The first cue is one of my favorites, and it's when hitting big shots, you hit to big spaces. What I mean by this is if you're in a point and you decide to hit the ball harder or bigger, you need to make sure that you aim to big spaces on the court. Aim further from the lines and further from the net, because the chances are when you go bigger, you're going to be less accurate with that shot. And so by giving yourself bigger margin for error, you're giving yourself more room to hit that shot. And let's face it, even though you're not aiming near to the lines, your shot could still go there. This is something that even professional tennis players do when they're going big. And so next time you're attacking that forehand, aim to bigger parts of the court. The second mental cue is to avoid making the same mistake twice in a row. When you get an opportunity to attack your forehand, you may make a mistake. Let's say you make a mistake by hitting it into the net. The next time you get that same opportunity, you're just simply going to aim higher. It sounds so obvious, but it's something that most of us don't do. And if you get into the habit of doing this, once you've corrected a mistake 2 or 3 times, you're probably not going to need to do it many more times in the match. And my third mental or tactical tip is to be aware of how well you're currently playing, as during any match, there are always peaks and troughs. If you're feeling great and timing the ball well, then by all means, you can go for those higher risk, big shots. However, if you're having an off day or just a bad patch in a match, maybe take a little bit of pace off your shots and focus more on precision. As no matter what level you're playing at, there will always be highs and lows in every match. And so it's important for you to feel that and adapt. Now, the third step, we're going to be looking at these players technically. And as you know, technique always comes as the last step for me, as most problems can be fixed through awareness or developing tactical intentions. But if you think you've got those 2 things nailed and you're still making mistakes with your strength, then maybe it's worth looking into your technique. Now, 2 of the biggest technical mistakes that players make when it comes to them hitting unforced errors with their weapon is either 1, hitting the ball too flat. What I like to say is that when adding speed to a shot, you also need to add an equal measure of spin. Because naturally, if you're hitting a normal forehand and then all of a sudden you decide to hit it harder, that shot is going to travel further. And so by adding spin can keep that ball in play. But another common mistake that players make is them swinging too big and using their arms too much. Yannick's got a big forehand, but in this match, he hit more unforced errors than winners with it. And in my opinion, if he had a slightly more compact backswing, it would help to iron out some of those kinks that you can see and allow him to find a more clean and controlled contact more often. Theoretically, a smaller backswing could result in him losing a little bit of racket head speed, but by hitting the ball cleaner, he probably wouldn't lose any power. But what he'd gain is a lot of control. One final technical reminder is the importance of your offhand on your forehand. As you'll notice here that D-Wen does a great job at using his offhand to coil his upper body in his preparation. However, you'll notice that Chris releases his offhand much earlier. Now, the danger of releasing your offhand too early is your chest opens up to the court before you strike the ball, which creates 2 problems. Number 1, if you're trying to add more speed onto your shot, you're likely to drag the ball wide of your target. And the second problem is, if you release that offhand too early, you've lost the ability to make full use of that coil you've created in your preparation. This coiling that gets your hips and your chest more sideways on really allows you to use your legs and your core to rip into your forehand. But once that left arm's come off, you're only using your hitting arm, which limits the effectiveness of your ground stroke. If Chris could keep his offhand on the racket for a little bit longer through his preparation, I think he could add some miles per hour onto his forehand without sacrificing any control. But going back to D-Wen, who did a really good job at keeping that offhand on the racket during his coil, something that could help him to hit a heavier ball would actually be to make a bit more use of that offhand once he's released it, as currently it just hangs there doing nothing on his shot, which really limits the amount of rotation he can get with his torso. Instead, D-Wen could do with driving that offhand elbow back as his racket swings forwards. This will help him to increase the speed of his rotation and in turn hitting a heavier ball. But the timing of this is crucial, as we don't want to release that offhand too early, but definitely something to work on. Let me know in the comments below if your strength is your weakness and which of those 3 steps you're going to take to improve it. A big thanks to Swing Vision for sponsoring this video, a big thanks to everybody that sent in footage, and a big thanks to you for watching all the way through to the end. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Take care.